Thanks for showing up today, guys. I'm going to share my screen so we can get our slides going. And today we're going to be discussing creating your financial blueprint or your home matrix. And organizing your finances it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. It's like just put all your stuff in a binder and it should be good to go. But it can also, it's a very difficult and confusing task because there are just so many different parts to it. Typically, when we say, get your finances organized, people are like, okay, well, yeah, I have my bank account statements. Well, it goes far beyond that. And it can often be the starting point of it to where even, to begin can often get pretty blurry. And so do you begin by gathering your bank statements or doing your state documents? Where is a safe place to store your, oops, I went too far. Where's a safe place to store your passwords or your deed to the house or your title to the car? Where do you need to put all these places? And do you need to share access to a lot of your stuff now? What if you want to share it later, and not necessarily give my bank account information to my son just yet? So it's a little bit daunting. And when we look at all the different moving parts to it, the easiest is to just not do anything because we don't know where to start and we don't want to mess things up. And so we often find ourselves paralyzed with that, where we're just kind of like, I don't know where to start. There'll be a system I'll stumble across it, and that will be easier. And that's what we're trying to do now, is because if we take the most efficient way of accomplishing your home matrix is kind of the same way you eat an elephant, one small bite at a time. And so that's what we're going to be doing. And like you had mentioned, Linda, we're going to be trying to go over these, one topic at a time, get you working on it and some of these things may only take you a couple hours. Some of them may take you a little bit longer, especially when we start talking about home inventory, but we're going to show you ways that at least you can accomplish these little things 1 month at a time. And by the end of the year, you should have it all organized and be able to hand over the keys or hand over the baton to whoever you want to much later. So today we're going to be focusing on passwords and codes. And this sounds pretty easy, right? It sounds pretty elementary. It's like passwords, codes. Yeah, I've got those. However, has anyone ever forgotten to pick up something on their shopping list? Like I got home the other day and I'm like, crap, I forgot almond milk. The one thing I was going to the store for, a basket full of groceries later, and that's the one item I forgot. Or walk into a room and forget what you're going in for. And the most obvious is, who has ever hit forgot password when trying to log in to an account? I am totally guilty because we have so many different software programs we log into for financial planning and invoicing and portfolio management and custodian. It's ridiculous. And we can't be concise with this. We can't say everyone should have 6 characters or 6 characters with 1 capital, 1 number, and 1 symbol. Just if we could all get on the same page, it would make it a lot easier for us. But some have 5 characters or 8 characters, and so it's all mixed up. So having to remember all of this stuff it can really be confusing. And you can see here the average household has over 130 passwords, accounts, and codes to remember. 130. Yep. That's a lot. And at first I was like, I don't know about that. But when you think about like your Amazon account, your Netflix account, your Ulta account, your bank account, your investment account, anything that you have to log into, it can really, we got one more coming. It can really be a bit confusing. To give you a bit more perspective on that, the average person can recall 7 items, plus or minus 1 or 2, depending on the actual individual. Further studies or research, some other researchers show that it's usually about 3 or 4 of new information. And so what do you think the chances are, one, that you're going to remember all of your 130 passwords and codes and things like that. But what are the odds that someone that you're having to or wanting to take this over for you is going to remember your stuff. Maybe you have a code that you kind of reuse frequently, but they may not know that. And so we're going to be looking at, if you're having trouble remember this or remembering all of these things, just understand that it's going to be tenfold for the person that you're giving that over to remember it as well. To make matters worse, who here has one of these? And you have to do this with. If you are incapacitated, or the face recognition, right? The face recognition, the biometrics, if you have any type of an account that uses thumbprint or face recognition software to verify one's identity, it's going to be really important for you to establish some other form of verification. And this can often be in the way of like a PIN code. Oftentimes, I know mine with the thumbprint, I have to also, my backup is a PIN code, because what if I cut my thumb? It's not gonna match. And so I have to have that PIN code. So I don't know why my slides are jumping ahead so quickly. Without that PIN code, it's going to make it difficult to know what is there. Ignore the slides. Apparently they have a mind of their own. So it's important that we establish some type of PIN code, some type of backup or recovery to do that. Now, yeah, I'm just going to stop these slides for now. There we go. We will just not have slides. They're not that impressive. I'll throw one up later. That's something that you might want to look at. But let me give you an example of what I'm talking about with this. Gary is pretty savvy with this type of stuff. We deal with it frequently. We help people do this stuff. And yet, when his brother-in-law passed, and he was the executor of the estate, when his brother-in-law passed, he knew where his investment accounts were. He knew where his bank accounts were. He didn't know what his Netflix account was, or if he even had one. He didn't know his utilities. He didn't know a lot of those vendors. And so it made it difficult to get in touch with all of those people without knowing it. Who here has more than one email address? I have 7. And will we have different ones for the business? I have 3 for that alone. And then I have an old one I'm trying to phase out. I have a Google one, because you have to have that to have certain software programs. They just don't use it. I have an Outlook one. I have a Proton Mail. And so all of these different things, if I have a Netflix account, which of those 7 email addresses are attached to that? The combinations are outrageous. And so his brother-in-law, being pretty tech savvy, he opted mostly for electronic statements. This makes it more difficult because not only was there no statement to review, if there was a statement sitting on the kitchen table after his death, he would be able to pick that statement up and know that he had a bank account or an account somewhere, utilities, let's say an electric bill. He can contact that vendor or that utility company with that information. Here's the address, here's the account number, here's this information. If you don't have that, how are you supposed to contact them? How are you supposed to know who to contact? He had all of the electronic statement things or notifications, because you don't actually get the statement in your email. You get a notification that your statement's ready, and then you have to then go log into something else to find it. And so he had all of that, but he also had 2-factor authentication. And so he couldn't access the OTP that came through, that one-time passcode, because he didn't have a thumbprint, or better yet, in his situation, during the transportation by ambulance to the emergency room, moving around in the hospital, and somewhere along those lines, he lost his phone. And so there was no way to access that. There wasn't an OTP that they could break into. They couldn't use his thumbprint to then break into to remove the OT or to remove the biometrics, because it was gone. You have one-time chance. You may be able to get them after they're deceased one time to remove the thumbprint authorization and just say there's no password protection on it. But at that point, anything that you've had password protected, like my bank account, If I go in and log into my bank account, it does my thumbprint, right? It does my thumbprint because I then have it also on my phone. If I remove that from my phone, I have to retype in my password to access my bank account. So there's no, it removes all the biometrics on it. And so that's important to understand, that even with his situation, the phone being lost, what do you do? There was no backup on there. And he had to basically wait until things became severely delinquent. And once they become that delinquent, then they start sending the statements. Even if you've opted for electronic statements, if you become severely delinquent on an account, they will send you something. They understand that these things happen and that the executor may need to take care. Or maybe if you're incapacitated, you're in a rehab facility, broke a hip, and you're not checking your mail every day, not walking to the mailbox, that will let them know, someone's checking your mail. This is severely past due. And then that way someone can take care of it. So, but even with the statements in hand then from the mail saying these 2 and 3 months delinquent, it took a good amount of time to then gain access to the bank accounts to pay that debt, because there was no survivorship benefits on it. It was his individual account. He was a single dude. And so the will took over. Well, get on the court docket and wait your turn. And eventually, after many phone calls and many, many months, and getting all of this stuff in order and making the inventory and gaining access to the bank account and paying these bills, that finally he may have some statements for. Some of them may not have ever gotten paid. We don't know, because if they were electronic and they were still sending it to his email, who knows? He couldn't access his email. Then, it gets very, very complicated. And this is just one example. We hear all kinds. We hear all kinds of how messy it can get. And there is certainly an easier way to pass the baton to your loved ones. And so that's what we want to do. And to do that, we want to just kind of get your mindset into the passwords. We know what passwords are. We know what codes are. We know what OTPs are. We know all of that. But to actually get them established, log them in somewhere. And so the first step is to just make a list of them. If you want to do spiral notebook temporarily, we are not going to rely on that. Unlike my dad thinking that he will not save any password in an electronic system, because, Big Brother's watching, they're going to access, someone's going to hack his accounts. It's going to be terrible. But so he'll use a spiral notebook and he'll just cross out the old one and then write the new one in. If it's as I was sitting here at my desk a week and a half ago and working on these slides, I hear the sirens, fire sirens, and not a big deal. I live a few houses down from the fire station, so it's not a big deal. But as they got closer, and I have an inlet here, so there's no outlet on the end of my street. When it gets closer, that means bad news. And then I hear another one. And then I hear another one. So this caught my attention enough that I actually get up and I look out my window, and there were many fire trucks. There was the ambulance. There were a few police cars. And I happened to notice behind the tree line, there was smoke to someone's house. My neighbor's house caught fire. And if they had a spiral notebook that they're writing all their stuff down on, that was gone. What are you going to do at this point? And so it makes it a lot more difficult. So to begin, to start a log of all your passwords, if you want to write them down, that's fine. If you want to create a spreadsheet, that's fine. We're not going to keep them there. Maybe the spreadsheet, but we're not going to keep them there because there's some easier ways to look at it. So what you can do is to just try to remember everything. Like I have a Netflix account, I have a TXU account, I use Verizon, all of these different things. Or if you do have any of them saved, when it pops up and says, would you like to save this password? And you use something like Chrome, go to your browser. I know in Chrome, there's the 3 dots up by your profile name. You click on that, go to settings, go to autofill, all of your accounts and passwords, your username and your password. I'm sure that other browsers do the same. Use that and go in there and look at all of those different passwords. Sometimes your username is your email address. Sometimes it's something else. That's what makes it so difficult. And so write those down and start making a list. The vendor, what email account is associated with it, your username and your password. And then we're going to make sure that each of those, if they do have any type of recovery password, if it allows you to do 2 on there for an email, make 2 passwords. I mean, make like where it goes to 2 email addresses. A lot of the, for instance, like Google, if I go in, oh, my phone went off. If I go in to log into my account, it'll say recovery password, and it'll let you put 2 different email addresses in there. So if maybe I'm not using one anymore, maybe that was the one that was compromised and I want to go into another one, it will say recovery at email address, and I can type that in as an alternative way of accessing my account. Some may only let you do 1, but if it lets you do 2, it may be a good idea to send it to someone else. That way, like for my son, I put my son's email address along with my personal email address. So if he had to hack into my Google account, he could log in using my email address and then put forgot password, recovery password. The link would go to him. He could reset my password.
You can also on Google with those saved passwords, print that out.
Mm-hmm.
If you get in the habit of saving them.
Good idea.
Yeah, and because that way, if you want to store them like in the vault,
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty easy to upload that way.
That is good idea. Good idea.
Yeah, Paul he just kind of redid all of ours and made most all of our passwords a little more difficult, a little more secure. I mean, he spent hours last month, and then we have it stored, but then we run it off so we can look at it there in the house, but then we can also, tuck it away, but it's on the computer. So, but I don't really understand. You're saying that you sometimes send something to you have it on your own, but then you send it to another, and you're saying in your instance, it's your son's.
Mm-hmm.
How many of those things, how many would you do that with?
I don't know how many. I think each system may be a little bit different. I know and I haven't tried to put in any more than that on my Google account, but it'll just have recovery email. And so it will let you put in more than 1. I don't know what the limit is on it, but
Okay,
that way
I was asking, would you do that with every account or just like some very specific ones?
Well, I could
Your
just
bank or.
Yeah, I didn't even do it with that. What I did was on my actual Google account where he would log in to get my password manager on that settings. I gave him that password so he can recover that, go in, click my 3 dots, click settings, click autofill, and get all of my passwords.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. So, but you could do it differently if you wanted it to be on just a certain 1 or 2. You could do it that way.
And the thing about using Google, I mean, technically what the IT guys will tell you is you need to change your password for security reasons every 90 days.
Oh, yeah, but we don't do it that often.
Yeah, I don't either. I just know that. But that's the nice thing. If you do frequently or, try to change your passwords, saving them in something like Google in their protected thing, it's a lot easier to go in and change passwords more frequently and then save stuff. It's easier to do that.
And it does that. It'll say, would you like to update this? You hit yes, it's auto updated versus having to go to a spreadsheet and remember, oh, I've got to write that down and go to my spreadsheet and type that in. So it may be easier to do it that way as well.
Are you going to explain this? Will there be a little explanation in what you email us?
It's this video.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the video. But yeah, if you and basically you just if you use Google and a lot of people do, then you just go to your profile. There's 3 little dots on there on the top right corner. And then you just click on when you click those 3 dots, it'll have a drop down. You can go to settings. And then on your settings, it'll pull up a screen. And if you look on the left-hand side, there'll be something that says autofill. And then when you click autofill, it'll pull up and say manage passwords. Okay. And when you click on that, then it'll give you a list of all of your usernames and passwords. And so some may be your email addresses, some may be not, so it just depends. So any of my stuff, like my router, all of that stuff, I don't think my router's on there. my secret super code that's like I put as a sticky note on my router. Anyone can hack into it. If you get this far to get into my office, congratulations. My ferocious little 5-pound dog will probably bite your ankle, but if someone gets in, I mean, that's the only one I think that doesn't like auto save as your admin router thing, but all the rest of them, pretty much everything you can save. I mean, almost everything. And so by having someone, instead of giving them access to every single thing, which I still want you to do, by the way, at least have documentation of that. But if you give them access, because that's not going to show you, it'll show you your username and your email and your password, but it's not going to show you the email address associated with it. And so you want to have a separate log of that. And we're going to show you a really easy way to do that. It's not super hard on some of this stuff. If you have the OTP on anything, make sure to add a PIN on your phone, on your devices. I know my laptop has a fingerprint, not the thumbprint, but a fingerprint. If my husband were over there trying to do that, he would think it was a thumbprint. And hopefully I'm not dead. And so he would be able to use my finger. But if not, we have a code that'll say alternative method and then enter PIN. And so we have like our primary PIN number that we use for I'm not very creative with it. I mean, it's just, we use the same one for everything. So if you get that, you will access most of my stuff. But it's increasingly important now that people are doing crypto trading, because guess what? I'm not going to get a statement on that. I don't get a monthly statement on my Bitcoin. And there are tons of wallets and exchanges you can use. And I can't just call someone up and say, I think my, if I have a power of attorney, I think my husband has an account there. Can you check? That's a no-go. You have to have the keys. And that's part of the beauty of it is the anonymity. Part of the downfall is the anonymity. Because you won't have that. So this is increasingly important, because when you trade and store your crypto, it's mostly in wallets, either an exchange or a wallet. Exchange is where you can do the trading, but a lot of wallets allow you to do some exchanging in there. And these wallets can be a couple different forms. They can be digital form and they can be non-digital form. So the digital would be like online, and the other way is like a thumb drive. Where you pull it out there, it's no longer on the internet. And if you lose that, or if you don't have the key to it, and they call their passwords keys. It's the same thing. If you hear password, you hear key, it's basically the same thing. But you can store them on the thumb drive or online. Online is considered a hot wallet. And that's more like a checking account where you buy and sell and do that. There's money going in, money going out. A cold wallet is I pull it off, I store that thumb drive in my vault or in my safe deposit box. And if I don't have the password for that, whatever's on there is gone. There is no recovering it. I don't know if y'all heard the story. There was a guy that, and I think this was in California. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty, I'm kind of 90% sure it was in California. He had an old laptop and he bought Bitcoin way when it was like, pennies on the dollar. And he now realized that he had like $30 million in Bitcoin, and he had thrown that computer away. And so he was actually paying people to go sort through the landfill to try to, and it was going to be like $1 million if you found it. So it was like a treasure hunt, a current day treasure hunt of the Bitcoin computer. But that is why it's so important to have those things listed somewhere. Hot wallets, I mentioned, are used for trading and are more like checking account. The cold wallets are if you want to store something for a longer period of time, and it's that thumb drive. It's more like a savings account. You're going to park it there for a long period of time. And whoever holds the key to that, which is basically the password, has access to that crypto. You can name a beneficiary in your will, but most crypto accounts work like an individual account. I don't even think they list joint, but it's an individual account, which means that there's no beneficiary listed. Can't throw a TOD or POD on a Benny or on a crypto account. And so you would need to list that in your will. So now a lot of estate documents are even going through and saying who are you naming as your digital executor or for your, executor for your digital life? Is that something you want to include in that? And that covers those types of things as well. Just like to make things more difficult, don't we? So definitely want to set up pins, definitely want to set up something that has a system in place for that. There's a couple ways you can do that. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again and throw these up here because I think these are the ones that I want to show you. Let's see if it does in advance. For storing passwords and stuff, LastPass is a great system. It's about $20 or $30 per year. And it'll actually let you establish those really difficult passwords and store it, much like Google Drive does. And it's not part of Google. One thing I do like about the Google Drive is it will also kind of keep up to date with if any of the websites have been compromised. And it'll let you know you have like these 10 passwords that may be compromised. You may want to change that password. So that's something to look at too. Account aggregation. Who here has used something like Mint or Every Dollar? There's you need a budget, which is YNAB. Wouldn't recommend it if you're just storing for an account aggregation. We have an account aggregation software program in our Money Guide Pro, and we're going to be rolling that out to a lot of clients on our new platform, Orion, where you can actually log in, have one login in all of your banking accounts, all of your retirement accounts, everything, all of your bills, your car payment, your credit card, all of it can be under one umbrella, one login, one umbrella. That way you can share that one password with someone and say, hey, here's all of my stuff. And you don't have to share it now. You can wait and share it, at some trigger point, but it's one login that would have all of that information for you.
And what is the name of that going to be?
That's Orion that we're going to be rolling out here pretty shortly. We're still beta testing it with it's the new program we got last year that we kind of mentioned in our newsletters, but we're still beta testing it to make sure that if there's a question that comes through, we're not like, so we want to make sure we are on top of it first. But Mint is a free one as well. If you need something in between that time, you can just sign up mint.com and you can do the account aggregation in there. Uses basically the same type of system. There's ones, I think it uses Plaid. There's one that's called Yodlee. There's all these different account aggregation platforms that are behind doing the work on some of these websites. But it's a free one. Every Dollar is another one. It's free as well. I don't know if YNAB would be one that you would need because it's more of like budgeting that also lets you do all of that. But we'll be rolling out the Orion probably second quarter. And so that's going to be free to everyone as well. And then that will also, if you have any type of estate planning that we've done, or estate planning, we can upload different things into that, as well as we can with another program I'm going to tell you about in a second. But that kind of keeps everything under one roof. So you would have it kind of as one login. It makes it really easy. Like Roddy said, you can download like your passwords and usernames and upload it into like OneDrive, Google Drive, iCloud, whatever you use. Oftentimes on the account aggregation side, your bank may have something like that. There are a few banks that will allow for the account aggregation, more of their budgeting side of it, but it may be something to look into. They're sometimes limited where they won't let you upload other like mortgages. Like I have my mortgage at American National, and I find it difficult for some of the platforms to upload that where others will. So it's just going to be finding one that works for you. Most of them should be available on Orion, though. They're pretty robust. I don't know if you've seen this book is in case you get hit by a bus, and a lot of the stuff in here, so you can pick it up on Amazon for about $18. And this is was written by a couple people, Abby and Adam with Jean, but they wrote it because they had these kind of situations. What happens? And most of the people that that we see that are trying to prep for this stuff are people that have gone through it with loved ones that have passed or friends that have passed, and they've been like burdened with having to come up with all of this. These are the hurdles I face. These are the problems I ran into. How can we eliminate those from happening to our loved ones? And so they kind of, it breaks it down and does these really cute charts, and there's like little stick figure drawings and stuff, but it makes it easy to understand. And a lot of what we're going to be talking about is in this book. So if you want to grab that off Amazon, or there's lots of places on there that, and I'll send a link to that as well. But it may be, if you're more of a visual, that you want to look through and read through some of this stuff, it has a lot of great information in it. That's what we're basing a lot of it off of, because there's a thing called Everplans, and the people that did the Everplans did this book. And so it's kind of in combination with it, but this is a place where you can go, and we offer this free to all of our clients. And we've sent this out in email after email and newsletter. And we're like, if you want this, I don't think anyone really knows what it is though. And so I'll send out the email. Let me make a note. It actually has a little video with it that kind of describes it. But what it does is all of your stuff, the deed to your house, the title for your car, your great grandmother's 5-star chocolate chip cookie recipe, any of the stuff that you want to store, you can do on here. And this is going to be really a wonderful idea when we walk through the home inventory side of it, the estate document side of it, because you can upload all of that stuff into this one program. Scan a copy, upload it in. You'll also be able to upload or type in the information for your Google password, so you can give them all of that information. If you have downloaded, like Roddy had mentioned, that listing, you can then upload that into here as well. Good place to store your end of year statements, your Social Security benefit statement that you may get, any type of pension, any life insurance policy, disability, long-term care, any of that stuff can be stored in here. Best part about it is that this allows it to, you can have this stuff in here, and you may have your Netflix password and your bank account. I may want my son to have my Netflix password now and not my bank account information until something happens to me. And there are different trigger points you can put on every item in this. And so I can say, by adding him as a deputy to my account on Everplans, when he logs in, it'll send him a link, and it'll say, you have been named as a deputy on Michelle's account. And it'll say, this is what you have access to now. And then if something happens to me, he can log into that. He can upload the death certificate, and then it'll automatically trigger all the other things that he needs. So whether it be the will, whether it be the all of the listing of all of my accounts, my bank stuff, my crypto passwords, my keys, all of that type of stuff, he would have access to that then. Really neat to be able to control when you pass that baton. If you're interested in this, I'll send the link. And if you want something like that, let us know. It's free. We offer this to anyone. If you have a friend or family member that you think would benefit from that, have them shoot us an email. It's free. We pay a one-time flat fee per year, and we don't care if there's one person or 100,000 people that use it. It's one fee for us.
And what would we be asking for?
If you have any questions.
Oh, okay. I was just thinking when you emailed it there, we need to ask for a specific thing. Okay.
Oh, no, I'll email the link, and it'll have like the Everplans little video in there that kind of walks through what all it can do.
Okay.
And then if you're interested in that as well, then just let me know, hey, can you go ahead and send this? And can you also send one to my son, my daughter, my grandkid, my neighbor, my, pastor at church, any of those. And with their email address, we can then enter that into the system for them and send them a link. Okay. And if you do name anyone, if you know that you're going to be naming someone on there, as soon as they get the email saying that they've been named as a deputy, they'll also say, and hey, by the way, you can establish one of these for free too.
I've used it probably, and it's actually pretty easy to use. I haven't done a lot of stuff or done a lot of updating lately to it, but actually using and setting up the vault and doing things is pretty simple. I mean, it's almost drag and drop or upload,
Yeah.
scan documents. It is really pretty user friendly.
I also like what they do is they prioritize certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And so they feel like, for one, the estate documents are really important, because why work so hard and get all this stuff and then you die and you let the state do whatever they want with it because you don't have anything in place. And so if I would rather name what I want to happen, I would rather name someone as my agent versus them, being appointed by a court. And so estate documents are going to rank really high on that. Estate documents usually include your will, your medical, durable, which is we call business power of attorney, medical power of attorney, and HIPAA authorization. If you don't have those in place, get those in place ASAP. Like you can go online, download it. You can go if you're, have military access, usually the JAG office on base. If you want, those are not accessible to you. We just started working with a place called Trust and Wills. They're a vendor that we get no cut, we get no kickback on it. It just, we vetted them and felt that it was really a pretty good service. But for a couple, I think it's like $260 for
Mm-hmm.
your will, your powers of attorney, your durables, and your HIPAAs. So good way to update it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're interested in that, let me know and I'll send you a link for that as well. And if we prepay it, I think it's a 15% discount off of that. So it ends up being like $220 for the whole bit. So, and that's for both you and your spouse. Pretty easy. The one thing I didn't really, it kind of pushes you, like it's more generalized. So you kind of need to know who you want to leave things to, but it is a guided platform. One thing I wish they would do more of it just is like, if you have over 150,000, you should maybe consider a trust. Odds are you're not going to need to consider a trust. Most people do not need a trust. If you're unless you have a very difficult situation, if you have like a very mixed blended family, you have kids from a previous marriage and another marriage, and then maybe some grandkids over here and someone with medical, that you may want to look at. If you have over 11.875 million in your estate, maybe consider a trust because that's the exemption or the exclusionary rate, at least for now. And so that may be something you'd be interested in, but otherwise most people can get by with just a will, power of attorney, and durable. So if that's interest you, whenever I send you the email with all this other stuff, send back and let me know. I did it and I got my packet. They even mail it to you, and it's state specific. So it doesn't matter what state you're in. If you're in New York or you're in Texas, they have agents that do this for you. You walk through, you do everything. This is my healthcare. I got it in a pretty little envelope and got this one, and I just have to take it and get it notarized. So makes it really easy. I liked it also because it also has, it recommends that, it says, do you have a pet? Yeah. Have you set up a pet guardian? No, I had not. Have now, but a lot of people don't think that. They think more of like my bank accounts, my people, my, non-Bay Christmas collection, those types of things. But they don't think about, what's going to happen when I have, if I'm in the hospital or die, what's going to happen with my pet. And I'll tell you a story. It's real quick. I had a neighbor, my older neighbor, and she had Charlie, little bitty old dog, mean as fire. And Charlie didn't like many people, and he was a little poodle. And she fell. She was a widow, and she would get out and ride the riding lawnmower all the time. She cut her 3 acres of land. That was something she liked to do. That was her thing, and no one was going to take that from her. And she had a garden. And one day in the garden, she fell and she broke her hip. And she had to go to the hospital. She had to go into rehab. She couldn't take care of Charlie. So she called me, and I went over and got Charlie. But I let her know I was going to be leaving town in a couple of weeks to go to Germany for 3 weeks. And so we needed to make other arrangements. And during that time, she thought she was going to be out in time. She wasn't. So we had another neighbor watch Charlie. And then it became evident that she wasn't going to be able to stay on her own. And so family from Burleson came to pick her up and take her to Burleson. And they were like, I'm sorry, we can't have dogs. My dog does not like your dog. And so they had to get rid of Charlie. Who took care of, who was supposed to do that? Who's agreed? Who can you call and say, I'm in the hospital. Can you go take care of the dogs? And that's something that is a really good idea. If you have any type of pets, who can you call on short-term and long-term? And long-term, I mean, like you die. So like, really long-term.
Long-term.
Not like an extended vacation, but I'm talking long-term. What would you do? And for me, we had 2 little ones, and we started fostering the one that's ringing the doorbell 5,000 times. The big white one, we fostered her because they were going to put her down. She was 8 weeks old. They found them in a field, her and her 7 siblings. And I was like, I just can't. So we fostered. We're foster fail. And now she's part of our family permanently. And the 2 little ones, my dad doesn't mind, but he's like, she jumps on me. She gets so excited, she jumps, and she's, he's battling cancer. So the chemo makes his skin really frail. And so he's like, I can't take her if something happens. So what do we do? So we had to make other arrangements, and we're like, we have a friend that has agreed to take her on. But that was one of those things that, like, what do? You may not think of some of those situations, but this does let you walk through and kind of designate. And a lot of the stuff, you're just like, if I die, everything goes to my spouse. And if we both die together, then it will go to, your contingent or your backup. But kind of have in mind, if that person, your executor, isn't able to do that, maybe your executor is your spouse, who's the backup for that? Who's the backup beneficiary, what we call contingent beneficiaries? Who's going to be your contingent? Those types of things. That's something you can think of now. We're going to cover a whole class on that later. But if that's something that you don't have in place, be thinking about that stuff, because as soon as we do jump on that one later on in the year, then you want to be ready to rock and roll with that. If you want to do it earlier, get a hold of me and we can send a link to that.
Speak your mind, say what you're thinking. Speak your mind, say what you're thinking. Just be you. Just